Seated meditation, yes. That's good. Yeah, so we can just take a simple seat, find what's comfortable for you, and then think about lengthening that spine. Maybe you want to close your eyes or soften your gaze. Taking a nice deep breath in. Maybe a few times doing that, or just some cleansing breaths. And then I'm going to invite you to draw your attention to your sits bones, making sure that those are firmly planted on the mat. And then almost like if you were a plant that was planted, your sits bones are your roots. And then think about extending up through your spine as kind of like a plant growing up toward the sun, opening up that chest, really helping those shoulders relax down away from your ears. And then once you've gotten into that posture, think about your breath. Just notice it at first and see what happens. Taking another deep breath, maybe this time lengthening that breath slightly. Listening to that internal rhythm that you have. Maybe bringing your breath into alignment with that. For some people, it's helpful to find their pulse. And so if you want to do that, you're welcome to take 2 fingers and put it on your wrist or put them on your neck so you can feel your own pulse, feel your own rhythm of your heartbeat, of your breath. Just centering in to those things today. And as you continue to breathe, I'm going to start to tell us a story just for our opening. Many of you know that we used to live in Berlin, Germany, and we didn't own a car when we were there, so we would take public transit. And my children were able to go to a German preschool, which is called a Kita. And it was a few miles away, and they had to be there before 8 o'clock in the morning, so that way they could have breakfast. If we weren't there by 8 o'clock, then they actually locked the doors until 8:30 because they didn't want interruptions during breakfast, which makes sense.
Because what?
What's that?
Because of why?
Because they didn't want the breakfast to be interrupted. So from 8 to 8:30, they didn't answer the door, they didn't answer the phone or the bell or anything like that. They just focused on the kids and having breakfast. And so if we weren't there by 8, then we would get locked out for half an hour. And I had to make sure that I was back on the train by 8 because I had an hour-long commute to go to my job. And so, anyway, with that whole situation in mind, I unconsciously started using the tactic of fear, mostly because I was already honed into fear in that situation of going, well, if this doesn't happen, then this won't happen, then this won't happen, then this won't happen. And so I started using fear as a tactic to help spur my children on, to get them to go faster so we can make the best, so we can make the next thing and do all of that. And you know, they would be rushing with me and I would be saying things like, we're gonna miss the bus, like you have to run faster, or whatever it is. Or we're gonna be late, or else, you know, whatever. But I found myself never really finishing that statement of like, we have to go faster or else. I just kind of would let it dangle out there. And I, after probably about a year's worth of this chaotic, frenetic, you know, stressful, fearful kind of attitude that I had all of us in the mornings, I thought to myself, this is not how I want our mornings to go. This is not what I want for my life, for my children's life, because really at the root of it, if I think about it, I really do believe that love is more powerful than fear. So there's this disconnect between my behavior of using fear as a tactic to get us to go faster and my belief, which is that love actually is more powerful than fear. So today, we're going to be thinking and processing in our own lives about where do we buy into fear, even when those fears are legitimate, and how might we bring love into those situations. So, like I said, go ahead and sit nice and tall once more. Let's take another deep breath to recenter ourselves. And then we're going to go ahead and unfold our legs straight out in front of us. And we're going to do just a forward fold here. So sitting nice and tall, pressing your palms into the mat, making sure that your toes are up toward the ceiling. And go ahead and take a deep breath. And then hinging from your hips, start to fold forward. Again, just as far as feels comfortable to you. Maybe resting your hands on your thighs or on your shins. If it feels comfortable to you to grab for your feet, feel free to do that. And just take in some deep breaths here. Stretching out that low back space. And then go ahead and walk those hands back to center. This time, rotating your right ankle one direction. And then going the other direction. Checking in again with your shoulders and with your posture. And then resting that foot down, go ahead and rotate the other ankle. Continuing to breathe as you do so. And then going the other direction. And then resting that down. Go ahead and bend that right knee. You're going to plant that foot on the inside of the opposite leg, and then hug that knee in towards your chest, and also twist just slightly. Just kind of like a little warm-up twist here. Taking a deep breath. And releasing that down. Go ahead and bend the other knee. Again, placing it on the inside of that leg, and then hugging your knee in towards your chest. You can think about elongating your spine as you inhale, and then relaxing into that twist as you exhale. And then releasing that down, go ahead and straighten that leg once more, sitting nice and tall, pressing your hands into the mat. Take one more deep inhale, and then on your exhale, go ahead and crawl those fingers forward, hinging at your hips, folding forward over those legs. Now, if you can, I'm going to invite you to take one hand to the opposite side. So whether that's the outside of your foot or the outside of your leg here, feel free to do that. You're going to feel how that deepens the stretch on the back side of your hamstring for just one side of your body. And then releasing that, we're going to do the other side. So moving your hand again across your body, taking it either to the outside edge of your leg or the outside edge of your foot. Continuing to breathe. When you're ready, you can come back to center, stretch down one more time, and then sit up really nice and tall. When we're ready, you're going to take your feet and sweep them off to one side as you bend your knees. We're going to come up onto all fours. And if you need to roll up your mat or make a fist here to help protect your wrists, feel free to do that. But here we're just gonna roll through some cat and cows. So go ahead and start by inhaling deeply, dropping the belly down, allowing the tailbone to come up, allow the crown of the head to come up. And then on your exhale, go ahead and tuck that tailbone, perch the back, tuck your chin, really stretching through those shoulder blades. And then when you're ready, you can start to follow your breath. So inhaling as you drop that belly down into cow, and then exhaling as you arch up into cat. Again, probably doing 4 or 5 of these. Just moving at your own pace. When you're ready, you can come back to neutral. We're going to do a puppy dog pose. So we're going to keep our knees directly underneath our hips, and we're going to move down onto our elbows here. And then if you can, you're going to tuck your ears down alongside your biceps as you stretch back. So it's kind of like a mini version of downward facing dog. You can rest your forehead on the mat if you would like. Taking a nice deep breath here. Now you can either keep your legs here or you can move all the way back into child's pose. And we're going to take our right arm underneath our left arm and stretch down for a nice stretch on the back side of that right arm. Really relaxing into that stretch. Feeling that shoulder loosen. And then go ahead and slide that right arm out, taking that left arm underneath, coming down again into that child's pose for thread the needle. Again, focusing on your breath. When you're ready, you can take that left hand, sliding it back up. We're going to come back up onto our elbows, again, tucking our ears down beside our biceps. If you would like to rest your head on the mat, you can. And then I'm going to invite you to work yourself up onto all fours once more. And for this next pose, we're going to go ahead and tuck our toes. We're going to lift our knees up off the mat about 3 to 6 inches, depending on your comfort level, for bear pose here. You'll feel your core engaged, and you'll feel your core engaged all the way around. So not just on the front side of your abdominal wall, but your low back as well. And then go ahead and bring those knees down, untuck the toes. Take a nice deep breath. If you want to roll through another cat-cow, feel free to do that. And once you've taken another deep breath, we're going to tuck our toes once more, this time lifting our hips up to downward facing dog. And if you need an alternate for downward facing dog, you're always welcome to come down to child's pose. That's a good alternate position, or to all fours. And if you would like, you can start to bend one knee at a time, just shifting your weight from one side to the other. Again, breathing deeply. And then bring both heels down to the mat. Again, we've got our ears alongside our biceps here. We've got our hands really pressed into the mat to help engage the backside of our shoulders. And then we're going to shift our weight to our left foot and take that right foot up toward the ceiling. Go ahead and bend at the knee for a nice stretch on the top of that thigh. And we're going to take that knee that's in the air and slide it between our two front hands. So coming through plank pose and then down into our pigeon pose. And then feel free to fold forward over top of that front leg. We're going to stay here for several deep breaths while I tell you guys a little bit more about our meditation and about the questions that we're asking today. So I told you guys about the story of me inadvertently using the tactic of fear to help get my children to go faster so we could make the bus when we lived in Germany. And how, I came to this place of cognitive dissonance where I was realizing that my belief that love is more powerful than fear did not match my actions of telling the kids, we're gonna miss the bus, we're gonna be late, and just kind of getting them stirred up, to try to get them to go faster.
How old were they?
They were like 4 and 2.
Yeah.
I mean, they're little.
Shame
They
on
were.
you.
No, I totally get it.
Poor kids.
I know. And we all make mistakes like this in our lives, and I still see the effects today, to this day, in my kids. When I'm trying to get them to go faster, they're getting stressed out and that sort of thing. And so that's part of the mending that I have to do as a parent.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah, we have.
Oh,
So Dr. Becky Bailey says, in her book about conscious discipline, she says, love is more powerful than fear, cooperation is more effective than coercion, and compassion is more powerful than competition. And if that's true, then I realized I needed to change what I was doing to get us to Kita on time. So I did, and it wasn't perfect, for sure. And there were plenty of moments when I slipped back into those old habits, but I just kept trying to make that change. We're going to go ahead and put our palms back on the mat. We're going to tuck the back toes, lift the back leg, step back into plank, and then shift our hips up back into downward facing dog. Or if you're doing the alternate pose, then a child's pose, if you will. And here I'm going to invite you to really start to open up your chest toward the mat. Taking a deep breath as you do so, you'll notice that will really deepen the stretch on the backside of your body. And then you're going to start to shift your weight to that right foot, taking the left foot up towards the ceiling, bending at the knee. Really getting a nice stretch on the front side of that thigh, and then taking that left knee and sliding it between the two front hands. You're going to move into pigeon pose on the other side. And then feel free to fold forward here as well. So one of the ways that I worked myself through that moment is that I had to acknowledge my own fear. And there's a tool that we have that is it's a dual purpose tool, if you will. And it's this tool of acknowledgement and affirmation. And so I had to admit to myself what I was really afraid of. That for me in the story, I said, I acknowledge my fear of being late because I'm afraid it will be taken as a sign of disrespect or incompetence. So I really had to get in touch with, what am I actually afraid will happen here? And then I said, and I affirm that I can use love and cooperation and compassion to get me and my children to the bus on time. And so that looked a couple different ways for us. It meant that we had to lay out our clothes the night before. It meant that we had to go to bed on time. It meant that I had to take some deep breaths in the midst of the morning to calm my own fears, so that way I wasn't putting that onto my children. And it meant that I had to, really, again, work through my own emotions, so that way I wasn't inadvertently or unconsciously putting my own stuff onto my kids. So the invitation for us today is to maybe, if love really is the best motivator for learning and growth, maybe where do you need to show your self-love in your life during this season? Go ahead and work yourself back up onto your palms. We're going to tuck those back toes, straighten the back leg, step back into our plank pose first, and then shift our hips back into downward facing dog one more time. Taking some nice deep breaths here. And we're going to walk our hands back towards our feet, coming into forward fold at the back of the mat. And then go ahead and bend your knees deeply. Put your hands on your knees. And then slowly round yourself up. Oh, very good. If you need to shake out your legs, feel free to do that. We're going to move into our mountain pose at the back of the mat. So first, we're going to rock back and forth across our feet, just kind of finding where does it feel comfortable, and then settling into that pose for our feet. And think about hips being directly over top of your ankles, softening that tailbone down, drawing the belly button in toward your spine. Think about shoulders being over top of hips, ears being over top of shoulders, palms open and relaxed. Crown of the head reaching up toward the ceiling. And then taking a couple deep breaths in this pose. So one of the tools that I used when I started feeling anxious or fearful was that I would sometimes just need to move my body. And so today we're actually going to just swing our arms. If you would like to bend your knees as you come down like this, and swing your arms out as you stand up. We're just going to go ahead and do like this several times. Breathing as you do so. Just kind of shaking things out. And then coming back into mountain pose. I'm going to invite you to inhale, arms up overhead. And then reaching up toward the ceiling, you're going to fold forward and still continue to reach out. Your weight, you'll notice, will come into the top of your toes as you fold forward. Coming down into a forward fold. When you're ready, you can bring those palms either to your shins and have a flat back, or you can just come up onto your fingertips for a flat back pose. Taking a couple deep breaths here. And then folding all the way forward once more. We're going to walk our hands forward to a plank pose. Again, holding here, but still breathing. And then if you're able, start to take that right foot in between those two front hands. So you might need to do this in several stages. Maybe that means you kind of step it forward. Maybe you have enough flexibility to just step forward, that's fine. Maybe you need to stand up and then step forward. There's not a wrong way to get there, is what I'm saying here. We're gonna hold this runner's lunge for a breath or two. Then stepping that right foot back into plank pose once more. Holding this again. Breathing deeply. This time, shifting our weight to the other side, stepping forward with that left foot. In whatever form or fashion you need to get there. Again, holding this pose. You might notice that your heart is pumping a little faster. You might be breathing a little bit deeper. We're doing a lot of work right here. And go ahead and step that left foot back to meet the right foot. And then shift those hips up toward the ceiling and walk your hands back towards your feet for a forward fold. Then bending the knees deeply, hands on your knees, and rounding up. So then again, we're going to start in mountain pose. Taking some nice deep breaths here. And as we allow our heart rates to come back down and as we breathe deeply at the back of our mat, let me ask us this next question. It says, so, if we asked the question earlier, where do we need to show ourselves love in our life? Sometimes that's hard to identify. So sometimes we have to ask the question in reverse. So here's the question in reverse. It says, so where for you is fear a reality? And what can you do to calm it? Because the fears that I had in that situation were legitimate, but I didn't have to let fear rule that moment. So I had to acknowledge it and then calm it down. So taking one more deep breath, we're gonna go ahead and start with those arm swings once more. So bending down, bring our arms down, and then standing up, go ahead and bring those arms up as far as feels comfortable to you. Maybe you wanna make a really big motion. Maybe that doesn't feel good, so you're gonna stay a little bit smaller. Maybe one or two more of those, and then coming back into your mountain pose. This time, inhaling both arms up, reaching up toward the ceiling, and then out away from your body as you sweep your arms forward, coming into forward fold. And bringing your palms to your shins, and coming to a flat back pose, or leaving your fingertips on the mat. Continuing to breathe as you do so. And then folding forward once more. And walking your hands forward. Into our plank pose. This time we're going to start with our left foot. So we're going to bring that left foot in between our two front hands. Again, doing that however you can get there. Taking a few deep breaths here. And then planting those hands on the mat, stepping back with that left foot into plank, and then stepping forward with the right foot. Taking a few deep breaths. Your legs might be feeling tired by now. Stepping back with that right foot. Back into plank. Shifting your hips toward the ceiling. Walking your hands back towards your feet. Folding forward. And then bending those knees. Putting your hands on your knees. And then slowly rounding yourself up. Whew. Very good. We're gonna move into our balancing postures now that we're all really warm. Whew. Maybe cool down just a little bit with some of these balancing postures. So if you need to move toward a wall or toward a chair for a little bit of balance, feel free to do that. So for our balancing postures today, we've got, again, always starting in our mountain pose. Again, making sure that that tailbone is softened down. And starting to shift our weight to our left foot. We're going to draw that right foot up. And then bring that knee forward. And when you're ready, you can cross the right ankle over top of that left knee, opening up into figure 4. If you would like, you can bring your arms out in front of your body to help with balance. And you can explore this pose further by shifting your hips back, coming down into a chair pose. Again, continuing to breathe. We're holding the pose, but we're not holding the breath. And then standing up. Taking a step out of that. Maybe rotating that left ankle a little bit. Stretching out those toes. And then starting once more in mountain pose. This time, checking in with your shoulders. Seeing where you're holding tension in your body. And then see if you can breathe into that space to relax it. Then shifting your weight to your right foot. I'm going to draw the left foot up and the left knee forward. And then when you're ready, crossing that left ankle over the right knee, opening up into figure 4. And if you would like, you can take your arms out in front for balance purposes and start to shift your hips back, coming down into chair pose with figure 4. Taking a nice deep breath here. And then when you're ready, you can stand up out of that pose and step out. You're rotating your right ankle, shaking it out a little bit. We're going to go ahead and come back down to the mat. Let's see here. We're going to do our same vinyasa pose that we just had done, but we're going to add chair into the mix. This is the last part of our active portion of our day. So just so you guys know. So she says. We're going to go ahead and inhale, both arms up. Reaching up toward the ceiling, stretching forward as we fold all the way forward. Then again, taking those palms to your shins or onto your fingertips with a flat back. And folding all the way forward once more. This time, you can leave your hands on the mat as you shift your hips back, making sure that those knees don't jut out way over top of your toes, but that your feet are firmly planted on the mat. And then you can lift your upper body, bring your hands to heart center for chair pose. And if you would like a little added challenge, you can see if you can come up onto your toes. If that doesn't feel good for you today, then stay here. And taking those palms back down to the mat, go ahead and shift those hips up toward the ceiling, walking your hands forward into plank. And if this is too hard on your wrists, then feel free to drop your knees down into a modified plank pose. That has just as much effect on our core as the other option. Then stepping the right foot forward in between the two front hands, coming into that low lunge. Then go ahead and step that right foot back. Shifting sides, stepping the left foot forward. And then planting those hands on the mat, stepping the left foot back, coming to plank, shifting the hips up toward the ceiling, and then walking our hands back towards our feet, bending the knees, hands on your knees, and then round up slowly. We have one more of those to do, then we're done with our active portion. So inhale, arms up. Reaching up high and then out away from the body as you fold forward. Lifting into flat back, whatever version of that you would like. And then exhaling forward. Walking your hands forward into plank pose. Again, dropping your knees if you need to. Stepping forward with the left foot. And then stepping forward with the right foot. We're going to come into chair at the front of our mat. So leaving your feet planted firmly on the mat, go ahead and start to shift those hips back and down. Lifting your upper body, bringing your palms together. Thinking about the tension being held in your thighs here. Then dropping those hands down, extending your hips up. We're going to step back with that right foot, and then step back with the left foot. We're going to go ahead and shift our hips back toward the ceiling, and then walk our hands toward our feet, shifting to bend those knees, hands on your knees, and then rounding yourself up. So we can go ahead and come and lay down on our mats now, if you would like. Yes. Who says yoga is not a workout, right? Oh, it's good. So I'm going to invite you guys to lay down. Take some really deep breaths. We agree. Yes, we agree. And if you would like, you can start to take your feet to one corner of your mat. Maybe it's the left corner to start. And then to take your arms up overhead and take your arms toward the left corner of the mat, so you're in banana pose there. Again, taking some deep breaths. And then when you're ready, you can start to move your feet toward the other corner of the mat, so maybe to the right side. And then taking those arms that are up overhead toward the other direction. So you're in kind of that crescent shape or banana shape on the other side. And then when you're ready, take one more deep breath. Move yourself back to the center of your mat. And then bring those arms down alongside your body. Allow your feet to fall open. Again, hone into that rhythm inside of you, matching your breath to what's happening there. And we're going to come back to this powerful tool that we have, which is acknowledgement and affirmation. So here's some examples of what that might sound like in some other scenarios. Maybe it's, I feel afraid, and I can move forward anyway. After all, that I think is one of the definitions of courage. Maybe it's, I acknowledge that I'm afraid my partner will leave me, and I affirm that I am still worthy and valuable without a partner. Maybe it's, I acknowledge that my mistrust of others keeps me alone and lonely, and I affirm that I have the capacity to open up. So as you think about these questions for the next few minutes as we cool down, I'm going to repeat them for us. If we believe that love is the best motivator for learning and growth, where do you need to show yourself love in your life today? Or if you need to ask that question in the opposite way, where for you is fear a reality? And what can you do to calm it? As you lay here in this position, if you would like to do a few added stretches, feel free to start to take your right foot up toward the ceiling. If you would like to, you can go ahead and rotate that ankle. Go in the opposite direction then. And then bringing that back to center, bending the knee, drawing it into your chest. Taking a deep breath here, and then taking that knee across the body, extending your right arm out away from your body, kind of like a wing. Getting a nice, gentle spinal twist here. Then rolling back to center. Draw that knee into the chest, and then release that leg all the way down to the mat. Taking the left foot up toward the ceiling. And then go ahead and rotate that ankle if you would like. Taking it the opposite direction. And coming back to center, bending that knee, drawing that in towards your chest. Taking a nice deep breath, and on your exhale, take that knee across your body, extending your left arm out, again, kind of like a wing. Getting a nice spinal twist on the other side. When you're ready, you can roll back to center, drawing that knee into your chest, and then releasing that all the way down to the mat. Coming into your final relaxation pose. You're welcome to stay here, or if you would like to roll onto your side, or if you want to come into child's pose, feel free to do any of those things that are comfortable for you. When you're ready, you can start to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and start to move yourself gently into a seated pose. And if you'd like to place your hands on your heart or open on your knees, feel free to do that. And I'm going to close again with this quote from Dr. Becky Bailey. It says, "Love is more powerful than fear. Cooperation is more effective than coercion. And compassion is more powerful than competition." So God, would you give us the ability to hone in on all of that? We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Audrey.